Hello and welcome to Mabinda TV. This is home of compassionate conservatism, where we advocate for a fine balance, a sweet spot between individual creative genius excellence as supported by capitalism and society excellence as supported by equality of opportunity. So in essence, you are calling for capitalism with a human first, that is capitalism with a human first. So basically we aim for a balance between individual creative genius excellence as supported by capitalism. So that means that we are calling for capitalism with a human face. So for now, I'll start with remaking America, then Africa perspective, and then ideas, and then finally heart and soul, where I look at a Bible verse. So basically, I'll start with remaking America. So basically, now it is 100 years the lights came off Henry Kissinger, that is the former Secretary of State of America. So basically, Henry Kissinger died at 100. So what was his legacy? What was the legacy of Henry Kissinger? Of course, he was appointed by President Richard Nixon to be America's Secretary of State and has stayed on that role, advising 12 U.S. presidents, nearly a quarter of the American presidents. Basically, you can see how much overall Henry Kissinger had, and I would think he has had such an imprint on American foreign policy, advising from the war in Vietnam to the to the rise of China, and I think Chinese leaders gave him a royalty welcome, because he shifted the American policy away from China, away from the Soviet Union to China. So basically, American allies were dumbfounded as to why Henry Kissinger chose to elevate the status of China. And of course, he has talked about managing an ascendant China. So what was Henry Kissinger? Sometimes they say that Henry Kissinger did not play by morality. That is Henry Kissinger, according to a New York Times article. Henry Kissinger did not play by the rules. He sometimes played real politics. Sometimes he used evil to be able to achieve America's foreign policy. And I would think maybe American foreign policy is so fractured. So you have America going to bed with really with dictators that have that torture their people, so that America could achieve its end of its geostrategic goals. And then you have America basically removing leaders that are progressive towards their countries. And I think that's the foreign policy of America. That basically America that's the foreign policy of America. That basically America is removes basically sustains dictators in power, dictators that basically are a harm to their people, and then they remove progressive leaders. And I think for Henry Kissinger, then so long as America's power could be achieved, he really had no feelings towards Henry Kissinger had no feelings towards maybe if the people in that country were suffering, as long as America's goals were attained. And I think that's a very bad image for America, to have only America's interests being served. And I think that's why America is the most hated country in the world, because of its foreign policy. But of course, it is the American people that are the most loved. So I think American policy is really fractured. There is no one way America deals with you. So long as its interests are served, America does not care. So long as its interests are served, America does not care. And I think for Henry Kissinger, then his legacy is that he played real politics over morality towards his foreign policy. And I think that's just the vision of Henry Kissinger. That's just the foreign policy of America. So Henry Kissinger is dead at 100. He has advised 12 American presidents. And I think America really has to look itself in the mirror. What kind of a country does it want to be? Does it want to be removing dictators where does it want to be removing good leaders of our countries who are not serving its interests, or does it want to be that angelic power that basically wishes well for the world? And I think you had Donald Trump come along and then recalibrate that globalist agenda of America, of having a hegemony towards all countries in the world. Then you have someone like Donald Trump coming along and saying, wait a minute, America is too fixated on foreign wars abroad. America is too fixated on foreign wars. America really has to do more to be able to America has to cater to its people first, and I think you had a BBC commentator saying that the biggest foreign policy challenge for America are its own internal problems. So you have America that basically, as soon as you arrive at JFK airport, you have portals in the airport. So you have an America that has so many challenges at home, and I think America has to retreat from the world, solve its own internal challenges, and then later on maybe now go to the world as a strong player, because I think a strong America at home is a strong America abroad. A weakened America at home is a weakened America abroad. And I think you have 60 million Americans that are poor. You have America with racial tensions, so you have an America that is at war with itself. And I think America has to solve its own internal challenges first before it engages with the world. And I think America has to retreat from the world. Basically, I'm not saying it has to isolate fully, but it has to retreat. It has to look at the aid that America is flashing over to countries abroad. And I think you have about 100 billion, $50 billion of it is going to go to Israel and Ukraine. And I think, of course, you have Israel is the longest serving ally of America. You have Israel is the longest serving ally of America. So basically, is the longest, is the staunchest ally of America. Of course, the other ally of America is the United Kingdom. So you have America. Basically that has is giving aid. What about serving its own people? What about America serving its own people? Can it serve its own people first? And I think that's why America has to retreat from the world and solve its own internal challenges. And I think that's how America is going to I think that's how America is going to be that shining city on the hill. And I think if America solves its own internal challenges, then it will not do much to say, yes, follow our system. But you have countries such as China and Russia, they look at America, they say, look, is this what you want us to follow? Look at the chaos in speakership in the American Congress. Look at how very much Speaker Kevin McCarthy was ousted. Basically, you have an America that democracy is wobbling. Look at the way maybe Kevin McCarthy elbowed a colleague in Congress, and I think American democracy is wobbling. America's internal challenges are so many. That is why America has to retreat from the world and then solve its own internal challenges. And I think this is the way that America is going to embrace the world, and I think that is how for America to embrace the world. That is how for America. That is the way for America to be able to be that shining city on the hill that cannot be hidden. And America will continue to shine if it is a strong player at home. So I think for Andrew Kissinger, he wanted American hegemony. Of course, America is now pivoting towards Asia and not Europe. And of course, European allies are concerned. Of course, if someone such as Donald Trump comes along, he will remove America from NATO. And you can be sure that European allies will not take it very kindly that Donald Trump is going to remove American allies from NATO. Then, so that's about Henry Kissinger, the death of Henry Kissinger at 100. Then I will move over to Africa Perspectives. In Africa Perspectives, what was the legacy of Henry Kissinger towards Africa? What was the legacy of the now dead Secretary of State Henry Kissinger towards Africa? I think it is the same foreign policy of Africa, that is remove dictators that are progressive to the people. So in the era of Henry Kissinger, you had the CIA toppling very progressive governments in Africa. You had, I think, was it in Ghana, where the founding president Kwame Nkrumah's government was toppled by the CIA, basically because he wanted a united Africa. Kwame Nkrumah wanted an Africa that basically united. He wanted an Africa that was basically an Africa that really was united. He was willing to delay the independence of Ghana until Africa could be one entity, but of course he did not live to see his dream. You had the Afro-Caribbean George Palmer believing that that Kwame Nkrumah would be the one to liberate the black race, but that did not happen because basically the young Nkrumah government was toppled by a CIA-backed go on his way on a visit to China. So you can see, I think Henry Kissinger towards Africa, you had Patrice Lumumba being murdered. You had Patrice Lumumba who had questioned why minerals in DR Congo who are not benefiting the locals. Remember, DR Congo on paper is the richest country in the world. It has resources, I think, according to the CIA fact book, the resources of DR Congo could well topple $30 trillion. The mineral potential of DR Congo could topple $30 trillion, and I think that is a mineral potential. The American economy is only $20 trillion, so, and I think the Chinese economy is about $17 trillion. So basically, DR Congo, if it converted its minerals, if it converted titanium to aeroplane parts, if it converted copper to electronics, if it converted that is gold and diamonds to jewelry, if it converted coffee to coffee drinking chains, if it converted uranium to nuclear power, then DR Congo, if it converted cocoa to chocolate, then DR Congo could be the richest country in the world with about $30 trillion. The bomb, the atomic bomb that was used to bomb Japan by Harry S. Truman, by the 33rd American President Harry Truman, that uranium was sourced from DR Congo. So you can imagine that basically Africa has to the U.S. hand kissing up policy on Africa was real politics. Remove a dictator that sustain a dictator that was harmful to the people but was serving the American interest. You have the Central African Republic, such dictators as Bokassa. You have America kissing and sustaining dictators that were harmful to the people, but removing very progressive leaders such as Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba being assassinated, and of course also sustaining the apartheid regime in South Africa. So you can imagine that the interest of basically the interest of America has to come first, and I think that is why Africa is in shambles. The authoritarian regimes in Africa was sustained by American foreign policy. So that's it. I have looked at that's Africa perspective. Then in ideas, I will be asking, how do we promote science journalism? That is, how do we promote science journalism? Because remember, how do we promote science journalism? Because remember, there has never been a time when ideas have been so much. Scientific ideas are shaping our world in innumerable ways. Look at artificial intelligence. Now every conversation is how it is going to append the way of life, and someone has already called we humans as legacy humans. So look at artificial intelligence. So how can we that is how can we promote science journalism? I think we have to dichotomize science or technical aspects of science and dichotomize it, democratize science, so that we break down the technical details to the smallest possible digestible units, and maybe science journalists will have to learn creative skills, and I think this is how to promote science journalism. So how do we promote science journalism? So I think celebrities have been made famous by science, but celebrities have been made famous by science. So why is it that they dumb down society? Maybe that is what you will have to explain. Why do they dumb down society? So you let me know in the comment section on how you think we can promote science journalism. And so that's it for now. This has been Mabinda TV. For now, this is home of compassionate conservatism, where we advocate for a fine balance, a sweet spot between individual creative genius excellence as supported by capitalism and society excellence as supported by equality of opportunity. So in essence, we are calling for capitalism with a human first, that is capitalism with a human first.